Bitcoin has long been the gold standard for cryptocurrency. Some would say it's the only real crypto. And while it is the dominant form of digital money, it does have its limitations. Although infinitely faster than wire transfers, check writing, and bank deposits, transaction time can be slow, fees can multiply, and its blockchain can be in need of digital XLAX. That's why innovation in this space is so essential. And today, we'll introduce you to Jared Tate, the founder and creator of the DigiByte blockchain, a highly decentralized blockchain. DigiBytes are digital assets that cannot be destroyed, counterfeited, or hacked. It's a super fast and efficient blockchain. So many blockchains, so little time. But that's why we keep cranking out content for you, the citizens of the Republic of Bad Cryptopia. Join us as we get digi with it for episode number 138 of the Bad Crypto Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition.
Who's bad?
Na 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 na. Getting digi with it.
We've got a great interview for you guys today. We're getting all blockchainy as we went to, at the time of this recording, DigiByte was number 50 in the crypto coin market cap.
Yeah, and I had the chance to meet Mr. Jared Tate on, I think, 3 occasions now I've ran into him. And so I'm glad that we're finally able to get him on the show because he's doing some really cool stuff. And they've been doing some great stuff with DigiByte. So should we get into the interview, Mr. Joe Com?
Let's do it. It's us talking tokens again, Travis.
Talking tokens with Travis and Joe's.
This time, it's all about an existing token that has quite a few fans out there. Now, full disclosure, I've actually held some of this token for close to a year now. It's called DigiByte, or DigiByte, as some like to say, the website DigiByte.co, and they are a public growing, highly decentralized blockchain. DigiBytes are digital assets that cannot be destroyed, counterfeited, or hacked, making them ideal for protecting objects of value like currency, information, property, or important digital data. And we have with us the founder and the creator of the DigiByte blockchain, Mr. Jared Tate. Jared, welcome to Bad Crypto.
Hello there. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, you're courageous. We're glad that that you're here, and DigiByte's got quite a following out there.
Yeah, and just to clarify one thing, we actually transferred the site from .co to DigiByte.io for those listening. So it's okay. Yeah, there we go.
All the cool kids are doing it.
Yeah, it's a new thing in the tech world, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But we have an amazing community. DigiByte's going on 5 years old now. And it's just been truly humbling, the outpouring of, at this point, it's hundreds of thousands of people that have been involved with DigiByte in one way or another, across the globe over the last 5 years. So, yeah, it's an amazing community.
If you could maybe give us the overall vision of DigiByte, what made you decide to create DigiByte 5 years ago? And maybe how is it different from some of these other platforms that were available at the time, and what's available now, because the world has shifted a little bit in these last 5 years.
Yeah, it's definitely been a roller coaster ride the last 5 years. There's no doubt about it. But I guess to make it a quick story, I first discovered Bitcoin in 2012. I was blown away. I was like, wow, this technology is going to change the world. But I started out as a Bitcoin miner. And I started seeing some problems that were going to arise when I was going through the code in 2012, 2013. And, I was like, hey, what if we did some things and actually improved on the protocol? And that's when I started work on DigiByte in the fall of 2013. But I realized that a lot of these changes probably weren't going to be merged into the Bitcoin core protocol. So I was like, let's create something new and test this out. So DigiByte was actually launched on January 10th, 2014, and it was launched with the Genesis block of Target from the headline from USA Today, Target, 110 million customers' data stolen. And, since that point, we have worked to make the the fastest and the most secure blockchain we possibly could. So, over the last 5 years, we've done a series of improvements that have now basically put DigiByte in the situation where, in terms of pure UTXO blockchains, DigiByte's actually the fastest, the most decentralized, and it's actually the longest chain. We're actually longer than any other major public blockchain out there, with over 6 million blocks. So it's kind of like looking at what Bitcoin would be like in like the year 2100, in terms of the actual, blockchain length. So there's been some interesting things that we've encountered along the way to solve some problems that we've ran into that, these brand new blockchains haven't even got to yet. And, over the course of the last 5 years, a lot of other chains, all the way from, Zcash, even partially in Ethereum, and, Bitcoin Cash, and many others have actually adopted and implemented some of the technology we've pioneered over the last 5 years. So,
hey, Mr. That's great. So size matters, is what you're saying. You have the longest, biggest blockchain of all. Is that genetics?
Possibly. But
how is yours bigger? Is it like you have like much smaller block sizes, or how's the difference with those block sizes?
So part of the reason we have a longer chain is because we have 15-second block timer. So if with Bitcoin, it's 10 minutes. So we actually have, for every one Bitcoin block, we'll have 40 blocks. So that's actually how we're able to handle a lot more transactions and how we're able to scale. But due to that speed, basically, obviously, we have 40 times more block coming. We've encountered some issues, for instance, with like mobile wallets, right? How do you make something that's decentralized and has that much data that has to be processed to actually share it? So we've done some things, we've improved some things that I would think eventually would probably be merged even into Bitcoin, just as it starts facing some of those problems.
Well, just to add some perspective here so people know more about the coin, it's as of this date, timestamp recording June 5th, although this will air a few days later, of 2018, DigiByte is number 50 on CoinMarketCap with a cap of almost 352 million. There's 10,350,000,000 DGB tokens out there, and price as of now sitting around 3.3 cents. During the January bull run, hit as high as 12, and of course, like all tokens that got their start, was much lower before. And so you've got a really rabid fan base out there. There's a lot of support for DigiByte. What do people like the most about this blockchain?
Well, I think what people like the most is really what differentiates us is, we were never an ICO. There was never a massive pre-mine. There was never, just a central entity behind it. It's actually been completely driven by volunteers and people donating their time and development, experience over the past 5 years. So in that regard, it's a very grassroots blockchain. And I think a lot of people are drawn to that because it really kind of mirrors that original vision that Satoshi had, with his white paper and the original launching of the Bitcoin protocol. So that's kind of what we've tried to adhere to. And, the beauty of it is, since it is decentralized and nobody controls it, it essentially can, at this point, live infinitely, so you don't have to worry about a central company, going under or running off with the ICO or the pre-mine.
So what is the Digi Foundation then, if there's no central organization?
So the DigiByte Foundation was an effort that was put together by a bunch of volunteers, myself included, and a handful of other people. It was started last fall as kind of a way to help, continue development. But at this time, there is effectively, there's no salary employees. It's all volunteer. But the mission is to help encourage awareness and to help encourage development of the blockchain, continued development into the future. But I wouldn't say it's by any means a controlling entity behind the blockchain.
Very good. I'm curious about this. So just recently, Charlie Lee had commented about DigiByte and was talking about how maybe it's not more secure than Litecoin, but it was talking about your five algorithm system. And maybe explain what that is, because I know that probably a lot of our listeners don't really know what it is that is that separates DigiByte from some of these other cryptos?
So basically, instead of using one single mining algorithm for proof of work like Litecoin and Bitcoin does, DigiByte actually uses 5 separate ones. So what that means is you could effectively take all the Bitcoin mining power in the world and throw it at DigiByte, and you would only get a maximum of 20% of the blocks, because each algorithm is rewarded proportionally 20% of the blocks. And you can actually take all the Litecoin mining power in the world as well and throw it at DigiByte, and you would only get 20%. So that's where, I love Charlie. I respect him. He's done a lot for the community, but in this fact, he's just plain wrong, because one of the things we figured out and what we developed and pioneered with DigiByte was something called DigiShield. And currently, there's a massive vulnerability, and I've talked about this at length at various events, and it's a bug effectively that's within Bitcoin and Litecoin, in that it takes 2 weeks for the difficulty to retarget and adjust. And so there's some various mining attacks. It's actually the same problem that happened when Bitcoin Cash forked from Bitcoin last summer. I was on, it's Bcash now, yes. So when Bcash forked off, I was on Twitter. I'm like, hey, it's going to be weeks, possibly days, hours before they even find a block, because of the problem that's effectively been in the Bitcoin protocol from the beginning. That's also in Litecoin that is yet to be fixed. And so how we fixed this was with a real-time difficulty adjustment, which we call DigiShield, and then updated to multi-shield. And what that allows to happen is to maintain the integrity and the security of how often these blocks come into circulation. So that's where, a lot of other blockchains have actually implemented that same approach in order to fix this problem. So, and that includes Bcash, Zcash, and dozens of other blockchains. So that is why, combined with the fact that DigiByte has 5 independent mining algorithms, so you can't get a monopoly, you actually need to take over 93% of one algorithm and 51% of the other 4 in order to 51% attack us. But because of the way that DigiShield and multi-shield works, it doesn't matter how much hash rate. Like I said, you could take all the hash rate in the world for Litecoin and Bitcoin, point it at DigiByte, and you could still not 51% attack it.
So who's using it? Are there any mass adoption cases yet? And why should somebody use DigiByte over, I don't know, Dogecoin or Stellar Lumens or any other crypto?
Well, first and foremost, we've had a committed group of volunteers that have been working on this project for five years now, myself included, right? We all could have up and gone and left. I mean, if you look at a lot of the leading projects in this space, and I don't want to mention names here, but you've got the same people that have moved from project to project to project, basically just pumping and dumping and cashing out. And, DigiByte's different in that we have remained committed and dedicated to just improving what we have. And we'll continue to do that into the future. But in terms of your question about use cases, yeah, absolutely. We have been kind of the pioneers and the leaders, explaining to people that blockchain technology applied on top of a truly decentralized public ledger can fix 95% of the cybersecurity vulnerabilities out there in the world today. So we've been working on some pretty innovative solutions. I actually spent a few years in Hong Kong working on a product that has actually been securing international trade shipments in the DigiByte blockchain for well over a year now. I'm currently working on another project that's actually bringing real estate on top of the DigiByte blockchain. There's been an awesome community effort to replace like SMS two-factor verification. So like imagine logging into a website and just using your wallet keys, not needing to remember passwords and other stuff. That's what we call DigiID. So if you go to digi-id.io, the document company that's being used to do international trade and other stuff, that's called DiguSign.com, DIGUSIGN. Yeah, so there's several things that have been implemented, and we're in the process of building more developer tools so that way we can get a larger ecosystem and more people building on top of the DigiByte blockchain. Because at this point, it's significantly more scalable, and you're able to do more things than you can on top of Bitcoin or Litecoin or some of the other blockchains that are basically filled up.
So you mentioned a couple of things there. You mentioned DigiShield, you mentioned DigiID, and then now DiguSign. What are those different initiatives, and are you separating those into their own separate projects? Or are they all part of the DigiByte blockchain project overall? Well, you're just kind of segmenting them out. How's that work?
No, they're working on an independent basis. So, for instance, DigiSign is actually a privately held company in Hong Kong that's just basically using open source technology, and that's what it's being built upon. That'll be the same way with like this real estate company. But it's something like DigiID, that was actually a completely community-driven effort. It's all open source. It's on GitHub. You can go check it out. So a lot of these specific projects, whether it's individual wallets, whether it's other individual things, they're really up to the community of developers that are helping to support it. I mean, I contribute to some of them, but there's dozens of developers at this point. There's been probably hundreds over the last 5 years that have committed, or contributed in various ways. There are other initiatives. I mean, if you look at all the exchanges that are exchanging DigiByte, those are businesses using it. If you look at some of the payment processors, if you look at some of the other things, I mean, there's probably, I would imagine, at least 100 companies or more that are using DigiByte in some other way. So there's a lot of people that have been interested in doing various things. But, overall, this industry is very much still in its infancy. People are just kind of now figuring out what works, what doesn't work, what actually makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So, that's kind of how the state of the industry. But yeah, it's definitely growing very rapidly, and it seems like every day I'm hearing about some new company that's adding DigiByte to their platform in some way. So it's very much a decentralized ecosystem, and it's continuing to grow.
What do you think? This is a combination of a couple questions that came from the community. What do you think are the three biggest reasons that DigiByte hasn't seen mass adoption yet, even though we are, still in the early phases of crypto? And what kind of marketing strategies, might be used in the next year to get more attention and adoption?
Well, I think it's important for people to understand a few things. When you go to CoinMarketCap and you see DigiByte's number 50, people need to understand that a lot of the projects that are ahead of it, aren't even actual functioning blockchains. And a lot of times you have completely centralized companies behind them. And a lot of the other, considered public chains were very, very heavily pre-mined. And you have a handful of developers that are sitting on the majority of these coins, and it's artificially inflating some of these market caps. I'm not saying that that's the wrong approach. Obviously, people are doing it and they're advancing this technology. But, when you take a company like Ripple that's got 100% pre-mine of all their coins, their market cap is much more artificially inflated than a truly decentralized grassroots blockchain that is actually probably much more widespread. And that's why it appears we have such a massive community, because there's actually just more people involved. But, I think the market is starting to correct. I don't like to make predictions, but, it's been one of those things. If you went back to 2014, DigiByte was probably in the 40s. If you go back to 2015, it was probably in the 40 to 50 range. But over the last 4.5 years, the majority of coins in the top 50, if you took like a 6-month snapshot, every 6 months you took a snapshot, a lot of those projects are dead. They hype up and they die. They hype up and they die. Mm-hmm. So, like I saw that article that came out not too long ago that only 8% of ICOs and blockchain projects actually survive longer than 15 months. So, you see a lot of this kind of pump and dump group. And whereas DigiByte has been a much more sustainable, long-term, consistent, project. So, and as we continue to grow, to be honest, I take a lot of criticism all the time for not being the marketing master. It's definitely something we can improve on, but we've kind of always held by the idea, if we build good, solid technology, eventually people are going to find out about it. But it's also hard to do when you don't have a massive disposable budget, to go do a bunch of marketing, when it's a truly kind of community decentralized driven effort. So that's one of the challenges for sure.
I wanted to say this because I know that whenever you and I had the conversation in the Cayman Islands back in October of last year, whenever we first met, you were talking about how you didn't have the big massive pre-mine. all of the tokens that you've personally got, you have gotten from mining them yourself. You didn't give yourself a pre-mine, and which I think that's very commendable. Now, well, if you look at some of these other ones, as you just mentioned, like Ripple and all these other pre-mines, and how the CEO and the founders and some of the top devs have millions of coins, and how they've sort of, are able to sort of be market movers on these coins because of the sheer volume that they have. And maybe that's kind of missing from your guys, because you've really taken this sort of grassroots approach where everyone who has DigiByte is one who has mined it themselves or purchased them themselves. So maybe hindsight being 2020, would you go back and do that exact same thing moving forward? Do you think that's the best approach? How has that maybe hamstrung you guys? And what are you going to do kind of moving forward to maybe gain some more capital so then you can utilize that to grow your marketing efforts?
Well, so, if I went back in time to change things, I mean, obviously I would have maybe streamlined some things, but overall, I would say I would do it the same way because, from 2014, 2015, 2016, those were some pretty dark years in the blockchain industry. And if we had done a massive, raise or company and there was a bunch of expectations, I think it would have been a lot harder to survive through that era. But more importantly, I really, truly believe that we're in a much more sustainable position than the majority of these projects out there. Because we've got a proven, working, battle-tested, battle-hardened technology, and it's truly decentralized. And moving forward, we envision a situation where there are multiple commercial entities built on top of DigiByte that at the same time help turn around and kick back and contribute to the open source development. Similar to like how the Linux operating system functions. You've got the open source Linux kernel, and look how many devices it powers across the globe. But yet you have multiple commercial entities that are built on top of the Linux operating system. And I myself am in the process of, and I really haven't disclosed anything publicly. I don't want to give too much away, but I've been hard at work on a new project that, we are planning on raising a very substantial amount of money, doing it in a regulated fashion, and really bringing some innovative technology from our experience over the last 5 years to a very usable platform on top of DigiByte in the real estate sector.
Oh, come on, give us more hints here. I mean, you just teased us, and this is this is a safe space right here, Jared. You can tell us what's happening.
Well, I think my co-founders would probably be after me, but basically, we're going to bring real estate to the DigiByte blockchain, and we're going to do it in a secure way, and we're going to do it in a regulated way. So it's an exciting time. We're working hard, but that's my personal project, as well as still continuing to help work on the core protocol. But yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff. So I mean, I know 2018, especially the fall, is going to be an exciting time.
Well, it would seem like here's a question actually from one of the community. They're like, can't Facebook theoretically buy 2 billion coins at the current price, fix a lot of the problems, and wouldn't this be a best and least expensive acquisition so they could use this as, their token?
I've thought for a while, absolutely any big company out there could do that and absolutely integrate DigiByte and receive a lot of benefits. They really could. It's something, it's like, okay, I don't want to give investment advice to people, but, it makes a lot of sense. They could implement it, as quick as DigiByte is, because it's just a few seconds. A lot of people use DigiByte, for arbitrage between exchanges, because you just can't, I sent a Bitcoin transaction the other day. It took 3 hours for it to go through. I can turn around and resend DigiBytes in less than 2 minutes, and basically there's no fees involved. So it really does make a lot more sense, for some sort of digital platform for transactional payments. It's proven technology. It's been out there. It's been slowly improved, but securely improved. And we've never had a major incident. We've been attacked numerous times, but to date, none of them have been successful. So, it's in this space, 5 years of battle-hardened experience, I think is worth its weight in gold, especially for a new company that's coming into this space that's looking for a proven, scalable blockchain.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people, they come into this and they're looking for the latest and the greatest. This ICO craze is sort of taken off, right, with Ethereum and everything being built upon that with smart contracts and dApps. Now, is that something that, DigiByte can be utilized for? Can people build, like you were talking about, building something in the real estate space, but you can't go into it yet? Is that sort of like dApps? Is it sort of like Ethereum where people can build on top of DigiByte with smart contracts? Or is that something that you're going to be maybe looking into in the future? Or what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely dApps. I mean, like this real estate thing, we're going to be doing identity management. We're going to be doing asset issuance on top. We're going to be doing, obviously the payment mechanisms. There's numerous ways, but yeah, it's very much been possible. We've actually issued some assets and stuff. It's been possible for quite some time. It's actually been possible even with Bitcoin going back to 2013, 2014. The problem is that industry never really took off because the Bitcoin blockchain was full. There wasn't enough room. But once you have a scalable, because right now we can do about 560 transactions per second. Every 2 years, we're going to double that capacity. You have the ability to build much more scalable dApps on top of DigiByte than you basically do on top of Bitcoin or Litecoin or most of the other, blockchains. Yeah, it's definitely in the works. And like I said, it's we've had a platform like DigiSign out there that's incorporated all this stuff that really didn't have anything to do with payments, but it managed identity, it managed the security of documents, users. There's so many things you can do once you have that blockchain and that network in place. And that's actually why I'm in the process. I'm writing a book called Blockchain 2035. And the premise is, there'll be 21 billion DigiBytes created and the last one will be mined in the year 2035. But more importantly, to help people understand how this technology can be used in more ways than just payments, how it can affect the insurance industry, how it can affect the real estate industry, how it can affect the legal profession, and on and on and on, but all kind of centered around cybersecurity because, effectively the internet as we know it today is broken. The architecture is flawed.
So I'm looking at the website right now, digibyte.io, and a lot of information here. And you guys have a lot of wallets. It looks like the only one that is not available yet for a platform is iOS. So when will that be coming out?
Well, it's actually ready to go right now, but we have been going back and forth. We actually had an iOS wallet on the iTunes store way back, even as soon as 2015. It was actually removed. Apple never told us why. And we have been in the appeals process for well over a year now to try and get that reinstated. So if anybody listening is works at Apple, like we could use some help with that. But it's actually ready to go right now. You can actually sign up for the beta test if you go to like one of our Telegram channels and you can install it. I actually use it all the time. So we definitely have several wallet platforms. There's a lot of good ones out there. We have the core desktop wallets. Exodus wallet's a great one. Ledger, Trezor, the hardware wallets. There's quite a selection. But we are working actively, and it's really not up to us. It's up to Apple. So
how does somebody mine DigiByte?
Well, so you basically want to pick which algorithm. So there's 5. So you have SHA-256, which is the same one that's used with Bitcoin. You have Script, which is the same algorithm that's used with Litecoin. You've got 3 others. You've got Scheme, Quibbit, and Grossel. And then the easiest way from there is if you have like graphics cards or if you have some used ASICs, you want to point them at a mining pool. And at this point, I think there's probably hundreds of mining pools. I know the last time we updated the market, we did a soft fork last year. We were actually the first ones to activate SegWit. Before Litecoin and Bitcoin did in April of 2017. And I think we ended up approaching probably 150 mining pools, letting them know, hey, we've updated the protocol. So there's tons of options out there. So you pick a mining pool and then there's plenty of guides and, you can start mining, and it's part of the idea with DigiByte was, hey, let's make sure we can take, for instance, all the Bitcoin mining power in the world with all the ASICs and giant factories of miners in China and other places on the planet and put them on par and keep it competitive with, somebody that's a gamer that has a desktop with a few graphics cards. That's how I started mining Bitcoin back in 2012. I just had my gaming PC and I remember I was able to get like almost a Bitcoin a day. But, that was 2012.
Those are good times way back in the day, Mr. Jared Tate.
Yeah.
Those days are past. Back in the old days. So, it's interesting. So one of the questions that came through from your community is about, proof of stake. Is that something that might be implemented in the future? Or are there any types of, enhancements to the DigiByte blockchain pertaining to consensus that you guys might change down the road? Or are you guys kind of good with the way that it is currently? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's always room for improvement. So kind of the background on this question is in early January last year, a lot of the community was like, hey, we can't really mine with our graphics cards like we used to, but obviously the community has dramatically grown since then. So obviously there's more miners involved. But what we've found out is that there's these secret ASIC manufacturers that have been building ASICs for different algorithms. And so now there's actually ASICs for all DigiByte algorithms. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember with Monero, supposedly there was a secret company that made miners for Monero that basically had 51% of the hash rate for almost a year before anybody noticed it. So, now that, because it doesn't really make sense for these mining companies to invest millions of dollars and then let everybody know that they're mining, right? And especially something like DigiByte, where we have always told people we could swap algorithms out. So we were planning on doing that for a couple different algorithms, Equihash and then potentially Fhash. Well, last 2 or 3 months, it came out that there's these new ASICs, these new secret ASICs that kind of completely make the whole concept of it being a GPU-friendly algorithm null and void. So, the ASIC problem is a really tough one to solve. And as time has gone on, I've kind of opened to the idea that, do we really need to do that? It's nice. But the one attractive idea that's been bounced around in the community is what if we take one of the algorithms and replace it with a proof of stake mechanism? So we have a hybrid. We have the security of proof of work, but we have the incentive for people to stake and, run full nodes and to keep their wallets open. So that's a very attractive idea. It's a very real possibility. I would say it's not up to me. I mean, I can just give my 2 cents, but at the end of the day, it's a very decentralized system, and any changes need to be carefully thought out and tested, especially now that it's much bigger than it was, even 12 months ago. When you start having hundreds of millions of dollars involved, people get pretty sensitive if you mess something up.
It's a crypto world. We don't give 2 cents anymore. You have to give Satoshis or something if you're going to give your 2 cents. So 3 rapid fire questions for you that these are more challenging questions from people asking you kind of like, hey, Jared, why this? So keep your answers brief. Just let's get right to it. Here they are. Why are you the only person on the general fund wallet and not under the DigiByte Foundation?
So that general fund wallet is kept under the foundation. So at this point in time, it's basically the old style wallet, and we have yet to convert it over to a new wallet. So that's part of the plan.
Why has the name of the people under marketing and dev wallets been removed?
So here's what happened. After I got hacked, I've had people coming after my family. I've had death threats. Some of these other members on the foundation started doing and experiencing the same thing. So I actually was the one that made that decision. Oh. And since nobody is actually being paid a salary and it's completely volunteer, I did that to protect people.
Yeah, fair enough. And finally, why is the foundation not legally registered anywhere?
So we were planning on doing that in the Cayman Islands. We had a deal to do it for about $5,000. The law firm we were working with kind of backed out on that and then said it would be 30, 35, 40. And that is pretty much all the money that's actually held in the foundation at this point. So if we did that, it would completely wipe it out.
I also have a question. So whenever we chatted back in, I believe it was in October, maybe we ended up chatting about this in like October, November, maybe it was even December. You had asked me to be part of the DigiByte Foundation as an advisor. And I think I said, yeah. And so I guess I'm technically an advisor to the DigiByte Foundation, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do. What am I supposed to do?
Give him advice.
Well, yeah, I mean, what you're doing right now, it works perfect. Asking questions and helping inform people.
Well, where's my damn DigiByte tokens then? Do I got to mine them?
that's the problem, right? So we're in the process of getting the community's input. One of these things you've got. When you have a decentralized system, everybody wants to come in and pitch and help, right? But a lot of times you start getting these internal politics and some very kind of frustrating, immature things start happening. So, it's hard on one side when you have everybody being a volunteer, helping with stuff. But then at the same time, you're trying to keep things moving forward. So it's definitely a challenging situation to be in. And that's one of the things, that's been, I guess, challenging over the last few months.
Is there a possibility where you could potentially say, okay, we're going to have an enhancement to this so we can pre-mine? We're going to pre-mine it, the next 2 million blocks or the next 2 million tokens worth of blocks. We're going to pre-mine them for the foundation for use as of marketing or whatever. So maybe somehow like Dash is doing it, where a percentage of all coins that are mined are going into this fund that are then used for initiatives that are like marketing or whatever, but it's voted on by the community or something. Is that something that you maybe thought about implementing within DigiByte? Is that even a possibility where you could say, okay, hold on. Let's vote on this. Should we do this? Can we pre-mine some so we can use this for marketing purposes because we don't have that now? Or is that even possible?
Yeah, so it's something that's an idea we talked about. We could effectively hard fork and take, 20%, like one algorithm, and, have that channel to a foundation, right? But I personally, with that idea, have kind of had issues with it, and I've ran it past a lot of people in the community, because at that point, you become a much more centralized system. And instead of having, no real major attack vectors, you have one entity that can be attacked, whether it's by governments, whether it's by hackers, it becomes a significant problem. So it's really, like I said, at the end of the day, it's not really something that's up to me, but it's definitely a possibility. However, you're putting a lot of trust and responsibility on just a handful of individuals. I've seen numerous projects where this has happened, fail, whether the company goes under or whether the entity's hacked, essentially, and in this day and age, I just had my identity stolen, and somebody walked into a Verizon store, basically got Verizon to issue them a new SIM card, took over my phone number, and from there started resetting all my accounts.
Did they have a photo ID, or how did that happen?
I don't know how they did. But they managed. I had the highest level of security required possible. It was a pain for me even to change stuff with my Verizon account. So
you're the very first one that I've heard that's had Verizon as a problem. So that same thing happened to me back in episode, I think, badco.in/040 or somewhere around there, where I got hacked. Somebody did social engineering, contacted T-Mobile, acted like they were me. They used my social security number from the dark web, were able to get my SIM card to switch, and they did that thing where they then switched my Gmail, my personal email, my Twitter account, my Apple ID, that whole thing. And you're the very first one that I've ever heard that's happened with Verizon. So how exactly were they able to do this? Were you able to pinpoint it? If they actually went into the store, did they have video footage of that? And how were you able to resolve it?
Well, see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like, Verizon's actually not cooperating on this at all. And I've actually had numerous people reach out to me that have had the same problem. So, and it's a problem with all of them. It's not just T-Mobile. It's not Verizon. It's the fact that, SMS, especially, the ability to reset something through a phone number, it's just not secure. You can't trust it. And I think this is something you're going to see much, much more in the blockchain crypto space. I think you're going to see more high profile targets, more hacks. I think companies, because one of the dangers is when you have a central entity that's controlling, tens of thousands, and then some of these groups, millions of dollars, you have some very sophisticated groups of people that have all the time in the world to come after these people. And once somebody gets into your private keys and takes over and cleans the wallet out, there's not much you can do.
Well, this is it's definitely scary that this can happen, and hopefully you've not lost much.
Well, luckily, everybody called me a security nut, but I had taken some extreme measures with different phone numbers, never using the same password, different emails, encrypted, all sorts of stuff. And it's like, I know that I'm doing things way more than, probably 99% of the people out there are, just because, I've had kind of continued hacking attempts for the last couple of years now. But I know if this happened to me, it can absolutely happen to anybody. And that's when I go back to, the fundamental architecture of the way technology, the internet, and these major companies are working. They're all vulnerable. Whether it's just flat out pure hacking or social engineering. I mean, it takes 30 seconds, on a Google search and maybe pay $5-10 and you can have almost every address where somebody lived, their social security number, all their personal information. It's completely all out there because of the vulnerabilities and systems that exist at the state and federal level, especially in the United States. So that's why I go back to this technology can be used to re-architect a lot of these legacy systems. And that's what people, I think, really need to be talking about is the cybersecurity implementations of blockchain technology.
So what can people do to secure themselves? Because that scares people when they know, oh my God, Jared Tate, who is a security nut, who loves this and has locked his down the best that he can, and he gets hacked. Like, what's to stop? Because to me, that seems like it's a barrier for mass adoption. People are like, oh my God, somebody like him has gotten hacked. Somebody like Travis at Bad Crypto, who literally was the digital strategist at Semantic, right? He got hacked. So what's to stop me from getting hacked, right? And so what can people do to protect themselves in this crazy, crazy crypto jungle?
Well, first and foremost, one of the things I see on Telegram, on Twitter, is when people get on there and they start boasting about how much money they make, or how much they got invested or this or that, or YouTube videos, if you're really like a large player, I wouldn't let anybody know. I mean, that's kind of half the battle, right? Is when somebody can identify you. I mean, it's to the point now where I have people that are actually spoofing emails that are like personal emails from my mother, my brother, and my grandmother, trying to get me to click on spear phishing links. So that's another thing. Don't click on random stuff and make sure you actually validate the DMARC on a record, because there's tons of people in this space, getting spoofed.
How do you validate the DMARC?
So there's a setting, if the domain is set up properly, like we have people all the time that are spoofing DigiByte emails, it'll basically come back and say, hey, this failed the DMARC validation because it didn't come from the correct server and IP address that this mail server is known to be on.
Is that an extension that you can add on like Chrome or something? Or is it something within your email? Because that's not something that I've done before.
Yeah, it's definitely something. I think if you go, well, first of all, I use Proton Mail. I would highly recommend that because it's truly encrypted. It's not like Google or Microsoft where those companies can like basically look and have a backdoor into your email whenever they want. But there are some settings you should be able to enable to automatically reject. And if you own a domain, like badcrypto, .com or whatever you are, you can actually, with your email provider, you can set up a strict DMARC record where you basically reject, it signals any outbound email to reject emails coming from that domain if they're not coming from your specific mail server. And a lot of major companies don't even do that, which is surprising. But it's more like a standard. And that cuts down on a lot of the spear phishing, and random stuff that people try and send through email. The other thing to protect yourself is don't rely on SMS two-factor. So text message two-factor. Don't link that to any financial information. Use like Google Authenticator, or Authy or some system like that, or even better, DigiID, which is a blockchain-based system. And it's in its infancy, but we're working to get that out there in the wild some more so people can get familiar with it. But, definitely anything relying on your phone number is just not secure. Going through like Proton Mail. Now, the downside is something like Proton Mail. Like I even have a two-factor on that, not SMS, but a different one. So if I ever forget that password or if I ever, don't have the two-factor device, I'm completely locked out of everything. So that is the downside. You have to have key management. So, it really is up to the individual person to kind of determine and do an assessment of like, hey, how vulnerable am I? How likely am I to be attacked? But like I said, if you're on Telegram or if you're on Twitter and you're on YouTube and you're making videos about how much money you're making in the crypto space, you're just putting a target on yourself.
Well, this has been great, Jared. We appreciate you coming and spending some time answering these questions. Is there anything else that you want to share with the citizens of the Republic of Bad Cryptopia and your DigiByte community about where DigiByte is headed? Anything you want to announce, put out there?
Well, first and foremost, we'd like to warmly welcome, all your listeners to come check out DigiByte, come join the community, check out DigiByte.io, go to the Telegram chats, get involved if you're a developer. We every day there, it seems like there's just new stuff, new companies, new partnerships. It's a lot of it's like, and it's amazing. There's probably a couple dozen people working full time to go out there and do this stuff. So, like I said, it's all volunteer. Nobody's getting paid. It's an amazing community. I personally will be revealing more about what I'm working on in my next thing here in the next couple months. But I want to make sure I got all the ducks ready. We're open to improving the protocol. There's a lot of ongoing discussions on the best way to do it. But before we do something, I think we all want to make sure that we're doing the best possible thing. We're really excited about where this technology is going. It's here to stay. And, we're very happy to be a part of it. And like I said, we warmly welcome everybody to come join the DigiByte community.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Jared. Appreciate it. You guys go check it out, DigiByte.io. And thanks again. We appreciate I just said that.
Yeah, thank you.